Hello, dear friends.
Hi, and hello. We have Miss Nicole. Awesome. Great to see you. That sassy girl. And Knowledge 2020, Miss Judy K. Draco, it's great to see you guys. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, awesome to see you guys. DG57 in the house. John T. Rita. Good to see you. Fibra May. Nice talking to you today. And yes, you did find us. Grace. Good to see you. Michelle. And we have official Steezy 1980. Janice. Welcome. James. Good to see you. Jeff. Always a pleasure, brother. D. Griffin. And we have Lightworker Andrea. Much love to all.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for coming on in. There's Six Strings. Great to see you. Also, we have Annika. Hello. Fleur de Lis. Hello. And Barb. Hi, Nathan. How are you doing?
Good to see everybody. And it's been a wild time, guys. It's been really a wild ride for so many people. For us, the last 2 days have been really chaotic. We've really been working with a lot of people. I think like 7, each of the last couple of days. And a lot of it just, spontaneously. Because we're going through a lot of energetic changes.
We are right around roughly about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month. I'm not exactly sure. We had a burst like this, a sun sneeze, and that energy came to Earth and it gave us upgrades. And it seems like people are so highly sensitive now. I mean, if you were sensitive before, you're going to be more sensitive now. And a lot of people aren't understanding these energies. A lot of people are still asleep, so they think they're having one bad day after the next, which isn't true. They're just more sensitive, and the situation that they're in isn't very palatable, or certain things about it. They just cannot tolerate it as much. And this is a form of moving into alignment, moving into your soul purpose. And sometimes it can be painful.
Yeah, John says sun sneeze. Well, yeah, we're talking about solar activity.
Yes.
There's a lot going on, and maybe you guys know. I know most of you guys know, but we're getting hit by more cosmic rays now than in our recorded history. And cosmic rays are the drivers of evolution in so many ways. And I've been gobbling up so many books. I've finished like 6 or 7 books in the past week. Just been pouring through stuff and doing a lot of deep meditation on things. One of the books I have to finish, I'm halfway through right now, is Evolutionary Leaps by Robert Felix. And he talks all about the Earth changes, grand solar minimum. Right now we have a lot of things going on. We are in a grand solar minimum. We have a magnetic pole reversal going on too. Magnetospheres in decline. All these things are leading to evolutionary changes. And that's really the biggest news that there is. Everything else you're seeing out there really right now is all about distracting us from the good stuff that's happening on the planet. It's all about changing our direction. It's all about inhibiting our growth. And even like keeping us from just being around each other.
Right. Some people are just simply too sensitive, so they tend to isolate, and that's okay too. Whatever works for you in this time, it's just really important to be good to yourself. Be understanding to yourself like you would be understanding of a very dear friend. Know that the energies are shifting, they're changing, and there might be certain things in your life that you need to shift or change as well. And all that's doing is just putting you into a stronger alignment with your higher self.
Yeah, so, I see comments out there. Knowledge 2020 was saying waking up every morning 2 or 3. And Nicole had said she's waking up at 3. DG is waking up at 3:30. Everybody is. Do you know why? Because that's when we're getting downloads. And actually, in a lot of traditions, it is traditional to wake up at around 3 a.m. in many Buddhist monasteries, they will wake up around that time. Same thing with the Jains and some sects in Hinduism as well. There are some that follow a Wiccan path or a pagan path, and will do the same because that's the time when like the veil is the thinnest, so to speak, and when we really get downloads, and it's big time downloads now, big time important downloads. We are changing leaps and bounds.
We are, and they are working on our DNA. So that's why right now it's super important to eat really healthy food. When we bog our bodies down with sugar and preservatives, that inhibits our DNA. That inhibits our cells' vibrational frequency. It can, that little sugar molecule can latch onto your cell and actually pull it down and slow it down. And that can make this process of awakening more difficult for some people. So like lots of water, eat really healthy, be good to yourself, start healthy habits. And for a lot of people, one thing that helps them through this time is a simple routine. So they know what's going to happen for sure from one moment to the next. If your moods are chaotic, well, that's okay. Let them be chaotic. Just know what you're going to do from one point to the next. And that in itself can create your stability that you need, or that will be helpful through this.
Oh yeah, big changes underway. We've talked about many things, including the changing of the ages. And, of course, many people are very familiar with the idea that we're heading into the age of Aquarius. Interestingly enough, we have that big December Saturn-Jupiter conjunction on the 21st, in which that only happens once every 20 years. And also it's been a much longer time. It's been like not quite, I think, 400 years, but maybe like 375 years. And we're going to be heading into an air sign, as far as that conjunction from an earth sign. So there's massive changes going on right now. Osboy says his dreams have been just off the charts, and he's very sensitive energetically. There's so many of you guys that follow us. Good to see you, Julie. That are really gifted beings and have a lot of ability. True light workers, starseeds, and are here for helping the humanity to ascend out of this, the dark age we've been in. So, we have the different ages. We have the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, Dwapara, Treta, and then Satya, which is the Golden Age. And so we're going to start to make the ascending process again as mankind went through a period of descending, devolving. When we look back in time, we find that we were actually much more advanced spiritually than we are now. But we are heading in that same direction again. Now we're heading back upwards, and that's why we have what we call the Ascension underway. I love this picture just because, you have these two angelic-looking beings looking down on the planet. You have the person meditating. You see the exchanges of energy coming. It looks like energy is coming down in the form of downloads, maybe at 3 a.m. for the person there meditating. As I said, that is traditional in a lot of different traditions to actually wake up, 3 hours. I know the Sikhs do it, as well, as we have many friends that are Sikhs. 2-3 hours before sunrise, wake up, and that's where you do your deepest meditation before you start your day. And I know that's tough for most of us. But we see the light coming on down from the galactic center, and we could view that as light coming down from God, from Source. We see basically the sixth-rayed star. And for those of you that are familiar with the Golden Dawn, there is a really effective banishing ritual, the pentagram, in which you draw pentagrams which represent the 4 elements in spirit, and right side up so that spirit's on top, manifesting downward into the 4 elements. All around you, you draw them in the 4 corners. You call on the powers of the archangels to come into the 4 corners, and you use the Hebrew names of God in this one particular tradition. Of course, any ritual could be modified, so you could turn it into, any sort of tradition, really. You can make it pagan. You could make it Hindu easily as well. It's really about the intent. But then you also say in this ritual, for about me, flame the pentagrams. And the pentagrams work really well to push away astral garbage and nasty entities, the ticks and leeches of the astral world, as well as, discarded spirits. And it works on grays as well. And you say also, within me lies the six-pointed star, which, you might recognize that and think, oh, it's the Star of David. What's really referring to is the Merkaba.
Yes, and that's something that is coming online for everybody. And that's part of the evolution that's happening in man right now. And it can be a very confusing time. There can be a lot of sensitivities, a lot of new emotions, a lot of changes of heart, a lot of life changes that can go on while our energy is changing. Because if you think of it, we are energy. We're just like a really dense form of energy. So everything that surrounds you kind of bounces off of you. And a lot of people, if there's traumas or if they're uncomfortable and their energy is a little bit jagged, well, things might be bouncing off of you not so smoothly, and things might strike you wrong. Like if somebody says something at the store and it just hits you completely the wrong way, that's probably due to a trauma. And a lot of times these traumas can stay in the energy field and kind of change the way you think. So with all of these energetic changes in our body, we are going to become more sensitive to everything around us.
We are. The changes are intense in many people. And, John says, all within the Shri yantra. And that's very true and a very good point. And so Shri, anytime we hear Shri, that's referring to the divine feminine. That's the goddess, the divine feminine. We could also look at it as Sophia and Shekinah, depending on which particular system we want to use. And thank you, Dawn. We appreciate your support so much. You guys, we can't do it without you.
Thank you so much, Miss Dawn. Thank you.
So, every tradition's different, but when you get down to it, you could find the commonalities between the traditions. And so when we look at the halos of the saints, does anybody ever wonder, well, why do they always have these golden lights around their head? And you notice, Buddha does too. And then you see other depictions, from other cultures, and they always have the golden lights. Well, that's because their kundalini is active and the energy is risen, and the golden energy is a very angelic high vibe. So it's a very high spiritual energy they're giving off. And it's denoting just how benevolent these beings are. And when you look at to the right hand of Christ, the one that has the head on the shoulder, that is thought to be Mary.
Yes. And, this is our divine feminine. And these people are enlightened, and they have been enlightened. So they can see things on a level that most people can't see because their perspectives have changed. And with all of them working together with their certain perspectives, these beings can be quite powerful, and they can change things and do things, because of the light that runs through their body. And we are having this happen to us now too. The light is getting, we just have more light coming through our bodies, and it is going to change the way we think, our perspectives, and how we look at things. One thing is important is if we've had a lot of traumas in this life, and many of us have, we can look at things in a perspective that might not be conducive to our health. So we might look at things in a way that brings us, bad emotions that are hurtful and painful. And this is why healing is so, so very important in this time while you're going through this.
Yeah. So like Nathan says, it's the Holy Spirit. Yeah. It's, we could use any man-made words we want, but it's basically the same energies. That's what we're talking about. So, seeing these golden halos denoting that. Now, different traditions have different ways of denoting these things. Now, I knew it, but it just hit me to a different level today in meditation. When we look at Krishna, why does he have the nagas over his head? Why does he have the cobras? What are they representing? Well, they're representing basically the same thing. They're representing awake kundalini. And so in meditation today, I was feeling the energy so strong that it felt just like that. It felt like I had a hood over my head of these serpent energies that was just so palpable. It was so expansive, and it comes right up through from the coccyx all the way up through the sacral area, all the way up through the lumbar, the thoracic, the cervical, and then rushes over the crown, and it envelops the whole of the crown chakra and also the third eye, so that it does feel like you put a hoodie over you or a hood. It's literally that tangible, the kundalini energy when it's awakened. And, for those of you guys that have experienced it, it feels like there's a cat on your head. Yeah, it kind of can feel like there's a cat on your head. You also feel the energy pulsating up through the spine itself.
Yeah, you do tend to notice these things, and some of you guys may feel those little spidey senses come about. And this is like something that's happened to me all of my life, and it really does. It feels like a cat on my head, but I never understood what was happening to me. I never understood, and now things are coming to light. So we're able to kind of dissect what's going on with our bodies, and this is something that's been really kept from us on all different levels, because when you have these abilities, you can reach out into the ether and you can read things and understand things, and it brings you a sense of gnosis. And yeah, they just really kept it from us, which isn't, it's not a fair playing field right now.
It's going to be even, though, as the changes come in, and we have a karma doc sighting in the house. Zephyrus Collins says, I almost opened the third eye before. It felt weird. It felt like somebody touching my forehead with their finger. Oh, yeah. You get all these sensations. One of the best things you could learn how to do is pour breathe, and I've done a video on that before. That is so restorative. It can really heal so many different maladies, as well as balance our energies. It's very, very invigorating. And I do have a video on that on the QiGong and meditation playlist. So we're talking about the same thing here. We're talking about the awakened kundalini energy that lies within all of us. And so in the Shakti tradition, it's worded such that kundalini is Shakti. It's the goddess energy that's actually dormant in the base of our spine. And what we have to do is awaken it through meditation, through pranayama, which is breathing exercises, and draw the energy on up through the sushumna, which is the central channel that runs up through the 7 primary chakras that go through the center of the body. And you see the 2 other channels, the male and the female, that run alongside. Now, it's a known fact that where the chakras are, they're major nerve plexuses. Now, the whole chakra system is thousands and thousands of years old, and they had vast knowledge. I think they had superior knowledge way back than we do now, even with our modern medicine. But we understand that where the chakras are, there's major nerve plexuses in the bodies. The chakras get opened and energized along the way as we do this. It's key for them to be opened. They can't shut anytime. Like, you could have open chakras, and then you could get a phone call and find out somebody that you loved passed on, and all of a sudden, boom, your heart chakra just closed shut. It's not completely shut, because without having these energies, flowing through, we wouldn't be able to live. The chakras are also they're actually doorways to other dimensions. Each one of them, it represents a different dimension. And actually, you do have presiding and residing deities in each one of the chakras. As again, man is the microcosm to the macrocosm. It is written, ye are gods, because we are, and we are universes. Every single one of us is a universe unto themselves. Now, the two currents that are running alongside here and interchanging at each chakra, they are the Ida and the Pingala, the male and the female. And so when those energies are balanced and the energy flows up to Sushumna, and it opens up and energizes every one of the chakras, opens up the third eye, and expands the crown chakra. And then we get our wings, so to speak. And the wings are representative of building the Merkaba. And as the Merkaba progresses and builds, it does start to look like you literally have wings.
It does, and this is something that seems to be happening in people. I believe it's coming in with the sun rays. I think it is activating people's kundalini, whether they want it to or not. And sometimes if you've had a lot of trauma and this energy gets activated, it can kind of throw you for a loop, because all of a sudden things that bothered you a little bit, they now bother you like you almost can hardly stand it. So suddenly you're in a position where you really have to start dealing with your traumas and dealing with your demons. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do because, people have gone through things in past lives, and that can also be a trauma that's coming out. So when the kundalini rises up, it pushes through past lives. So you could have past life issues coming up as well.
When we see the Tao sign, this is symbolizing the same thing. So this is really symbolizing Shiva and Shakti. It's really, it's symbolizing the yin and the yang, the male and the female, the positive and the negative. And the Tao itself is something that you can't describe. The Tao is the way. So it's said, and I did a video recently on EEARTS uploaded to, that was talking all about the Tao Te Ching and actually went through all the stanzas in the Tao Te Ching. So, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. It's the same thing basically with God and Source. There are many different devas. There are many different asuras. There are many different angelic type of beings. There are many different demonic type of beings. There's all sorts of beings, extraterrestrial, interdimensional. In fact, according to the Puranas and the Vedas, there's 420,000 different type of humanoid beings, just humanoid beings in our own particular neck of this galactic woods. One thing that's fascinating too is the fact that we are just in one bubble, so to speak. Our entire universe is but one cell in something much, much larger. And this is reflected in the as above, so below. So also when, Christ said, let thy eye be single. If the light of thy eye is single, then thy whole body will be full of light. It's again talking about the kundalini energy, how imperative it is to basically cultivate that. And then your third eye is opened, you get your wings, so to speak. The wings start to develop, we really should say, because the Merkaba takes time to develop. And by the way, there's like 72,000 nadis. Nadis are energy channels, but these are the big three. These are the big three, the big trinity of energy channels. And think about that. We have the three big energy channels. We have the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. We have basically the masculine and the feminine, and then again we have the unified energy. Why are angels usually depicted as androgynous? And they truly are androgynous. They're without sex. Just same thing with God, There is God the Father, there's God the Mother too, and then there's that God with the biggest G of all that encompasses all of that, and yet is not limited to any one particular sex.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a lot going on here, and it can be very confusing. But that your things are starting to happen with you when you can start seeing through the BS in society, when you start understanding that everything on the media isn't necessarily how things are, when you can see past, certain education systems like education, through school, and different, just different ways that they bring up society, certain cultural rules. When you start understanding that things are not as they appear, that's when your eye is starting to open up to see things in a different dimensions.
Teresa says, how do you know all this stuff? It's just been part of my path. As I've shared before, when I was 5 years old, my brother was 16 and he died, and I had to know what happened to him. And I was just kind of all consumed with understanding, where did he go? And so I remember, there being a Bible and a Catholic missal on my mom's, table by the bedside. And I remember grabbing it and trying to read it. And at 5, I couldn't. But luckily I had a neighbor who was old enough to read to me. So, I handed her the books and she read to me. And, at 5, I was learning about the Passion of Christ. And by the time I was 11, I had read the Bible cover to cover on my own several times. And so it's just been a nonstop journey. And I've tried to study every single religious tradition I could think of. And so, right now we're delving deep into Jainism and others, because I haven't really delved deep into that particular philosophy yet. And as well as trying to balance it out with science and spending hours and hours every day trying to go within. It's a combination of things, but it's a passion because, I want to share with you guys. And then I'm blessed to have such an incredibly intuitive wife who can clarify things for me, and I could clarify things for her. So that's a blessing both ways through, because she's like as gifted a psychic as I've seen. Just the world doesn't understand how gifted she is yet, though many of you guys do.
He's so sweet. he's so sweet. Yeah, and Karma Doc says, her sister died at 14 and I started learning medicine. Absolutely. And, with me, I too, it was a tragedy. I lost a very dear friend of 25 years. And that's when I understood, okay, things are not as they seem. And I went back to kind of regain my abilities, because I had these abilities where I could see, discarnates, and I could see energies. And as you go through life, sometimes that you don't use those abilities and they kind of go away, but you can absolutely bring them back. And after my friend died, it was important for me to be able to see through all of these things once again and understand what's going on in different realms and why and where did she go. And but yeah, for many of us, our awakening stories, or even the beginning of our careers, unfortunately starts with a tragedy sometimes.
Yeah, and so, Teresa says, do you think it's become because of past life? Yeah, and one of the things that happens, definitely everything we do in this life we carry forward. We can't take things with us, but we can take knowledge to a degree and experience. And the energetic changes that we work on this life, they will move forward into the next life. And in Taoist philosophy, when we are practicing QiGong, ultimately what we are doing is trying to cultivate spiritual energy. At first, it's really focused on cultivating the Jing, and the Jing is the essence, the more physical form of the life force. So the first thing you get is better health, and some old maladies start to go away. You get a little bit more flexible, you have more energy, you feel better. And then at a certain time, when the lower dantian, the lower reservoir for that qi is full, there's an overflow upwards into the emotional center, where the middle dantian is between the solar plexus and the heart chakra. And when that is full, after cultivating and drawing in the life force consciously, then you get more of that peacefulness that comes upon you, and that like compassion that we see from Christ and Buddha towards others. And when that is full, then it flows upwards into the upper dantian, and there it resides in a form of energy that we could take with us. So they're known as the three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen is spirit. So the purpose really is to keep drawing that energy up, up, up. And we bring it up into the upper dantian, and we will actually take that with us when we leave the body. In the tantric tradition and yogic traditions, when you know that you're getting close to death, you meditate on the third eye, and you focus on drawing your soul out of the crown chakra at death. If the soul exits through any of the lower chakras, you're much more likely to go into, reincarnate again. The path upwards into the higher dimensions, the higher densities, lies through the crown chakra. So we focus on passing our consciousness up into the crown chakra and out of the crown chakra at death.
And what I feel has been done deliberately to us, as a whole, is they've implanted these traumas throughout our life, starting in childhood. And when you're going through these energetic changes and your emotions become much stronger, say if you have anger issues, those anger issues are going to become stronger. And that's why, and if they keep us like in a low vibrational state where they're having all of this chaos thrown at us, it keeps us down. It keeps us down in the lower chakras and in fight or flight mode. So if we leave this world, chances are you're probably going to just have to reincarnate right back in it. And that's like a win for them. They got to keep another being. You move these energies up, up, up. And when you do leave this world, you too will go up.
Hi, Tammy. Nice to see you. Hope everything is good over there in Kansas. So when the vital energies of the opposite forces circulating in the Ida and Pingala are unified, the Sushumna energies energize the 7 chakras. And, then we're really, really on our way. And we recognize a lot of these symbols. We see the caduceus, the Hermes, and, Hermeticism, as I've shared with you guys before. At 7 years old, we moved into this creepy house that really freaked me out. Honestly, I could feel the spirits in it. And in actuality, the people that lived there before, the husband actually killed himself in the bathroom. And I could still feel his energy there. So it used to, be trying because my bedroom was right next to that bathroom and I could sense his energy still there. But in the basement was a book, Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barden. And again, at 7, I couldn't really understand what it was talking about. It was talking about creating elementals, egregores, controlling the elements themselves, using the angelic forces to help you in these endeavors. And talking about balancing, again, the Ida and the Pingala, which we see over here on the staff. This is exactly the same thing. This is exactly what it means. As we've said many times, the Pope carries a staff with a pine cone. The pine cone is representing the pineal gland. And again, the angel wings, the halo, it's all right in front of us. These are the secrets that they were keeping from us because they don't want us understanding it. They want to keep us just looking at the parables. Just focus on the parables, Don't focus on the esoteric stuff that could actually help you to raise your consciousness, to come to a greater understanding of things. Just take things literally and focus on the parables. That unfortunately has been the focus. As we've said many times too, it's just stated right there that Christ taught in parables for the masses because that's what most people would be able to get. Most people were illiterate. Now, the vast, vast majority, very few people could read and write back in those days. And so they wouldn't really necessarily be able to understand what he was teaching unless they had direct communication from a guru, which he was a guru. Obviously, he was a great teacher. And so, these traditions are really around the world, and they have different labels, they have different flavors to them, but there is this hidden tradition which tells man how man could become much more than what man has been led to believe he is.
Mm-hmm. And, this is why, here over in the West, they've given us this Bible, and there's like millions and millions of churches. There's several churches for every small town, big town. There's churches on every block, and they tell you, okay, this is what you're supposed to learn. You can only know these words and don't look outside of the box. And they, tell you in fear of eternal death, if you dare look outside of this box, don't do it. And this is exactly how they keep us down, and this is how they keep us repressed and keep us from moving up in the spiritual realms.
So what's happening to a lot of people out there right now is that they're going through kundalini experiences and they don't even understand it. They just don't understand it. They don't know what's happening to them. They're having wild mood swings. You might be getting awfully very, very hot all of a sudden, sweating, and then you might be very, very cold. You could be starting to pick up on abilities that you don't even know are there. Like you're starting to maybe see energy. You could see the life force it looks like there's things swimming around in rivers all around you. It freaked me out the first time I saw the life force. My daughter was a baby and I was feeding her in the middle of the night, like around 3 a.m. And all of a sudden, all I saw was rivers of energy. This is like 31 years ago. And rivers of energy everywhere. It was really kind of like Neo looking in the Matrix when he's looking down the corridor and he sees the 3 agents. It's like seeing the coding.
And notice how they do have, if people say they're seeing certain things, they do have professionals that you can go see. And if you explain this to them, they do have certain things that they'll give you and they'll tell you, okay, this is going to help you stop seeing things. But really, we don't want to stop that, because you can only stop it for a little while before it starts bursting through in other areas. The best thing to do when things don't make any sense is just write it down, make a note of it, and then that thought or that feeling or that issue knows it has a safe place to be. And that's just really important. And then just continue on with the process. There's no need to be afraid of it.
So this is Gopi Krishna, and I read his book a long time ago, probably in the late 80s, I would say, somewhere in that range. At the age of 34, while meditating one morning, he reported to have experienced a sudden and forceful awakening of kundalini. The illumination grew brighter and brighter, the roaring louder. I experienced a rocking sensation, and then I felt myself slipping out of my body, entirely enveloped in a halo of light. And I could just tell you guys, it is a little bit scary. Don't be afraid. I don't want to put the seeds of fear in anybody. But it definitely can be an overwhelming sensation. He felt the point of consciousness that was himself growing wider, surrounded by waves of light. Oh, yeah. Those waves of light, I feel, are so pleasant. I love the feeling of when the waves of light come through you. I was now all consciousness, without any outline, without any idea of corporal appendage. Without any feeling or sensation coming from the senses, emerged in a sea of light, simultaneously conscious and aware of every point, spread out as if it were in all directions, without any barrier or material obstruction, bathed in light and in a state of exaltation and happiness impossible to describe. That is Gnosis. That's self-realization, recognizing that we are not the body. We have a body, but we're not the body. We're much, much more than the body. And just, it's an experience. It's experiential. As we've shared before, the form of Christianity that we have received from Constantine and the Council of Nicaea and many councils after that, it's not the only form of Christianity that there was. And the Gnostic Christians taught a different belief set. And Gnosis is experiential. But that doesn't pay the bills for the churches. That doesn't make the priests and everybody else in the whole system, it doesn't give them power. It doesn't bring them wealth. It puts power in your hands, the individual hands, because you don't need anybody to, be an intercessor for yourself to God's source. it's an individual journey. And so, and each one of us is a unique representation of Source. We are Source, experiencing its creation. So now Gopi Krishna, just get back to him briefly, it was tough on him. Cindy has been reading his book. It's not all easy. You have to purge. You have to get rid of that does not serve anymore. It can be extremely uncomfortable. And what's happening now is the cosmic rays that are coming in, these energies they're kickstarting kundalini in people that in many cases are not quite ready for it.
Right. It's an energy that deserves a lot of respect because it is very powerful. And it does seem like, when we're working with people, certain things, it sounds like this is what could be happening and people don't know what's going on, and they're not going to educate the masses on this because, well, they're just not going to, because then we would know the secrets of the universe. We would know too many things. So it's definitely an energy to be respected. Shouldn't just be, fly by day. Oh, I want this to happen. Not necessarily, especially if you've had a lot of traumas. It's something that needs to be, you need to be gentle with it and be good to yourself and have a support system. Have people around you that understand what's going on. Because, with Gopi Krishna and myself, I've had some pretty serious issues. It can be difficult.
Oh, it definitely can be. And that's what's happening to so many people right now, because as we were saying, we've been working on so many people that have been going through the Ascension process. They're going through kundalini, and it can be traumatic. It really can be very, very traumatic. It's not easy. And so when we look at this picture, what we're looking at here is a representation of Shiva. Shiva is one of the main Hindu deities, and Shakti. And so, it's the goddess and God. But really, this right here is basically saying the same thing as that, the yin and the yang. It'll be coming out in a second. The yin and the yang sign are really the same thing as when we look at Shiva and Shakti. And I'll get back over here. Represented in this. And of course, this is a way of putting it into the human form. And every person has had, everybody probably on Earth by this time has had lives both masculine and feminine. So, that's just basically, that's the garments we're wearing for this particular incarnation. And each incarnation is unique. But the Jiva, the Atman, the essence that is really us is that which goes on forever and has experiences both male and female. It's in the understanding of this and coming to a balance. It doesn't mean that we're all to be hermaphrodites or anything like that. What it is it's an understanding of the energies. When we look at this world, it's been a very, very patriarchal society. It's been male-dominated for the most part, but the divine feminine is coming back into balance. It's going to take some time, but that's part of the process. And when you look at the bottom here, you see the roots going down into the earth here of Shiva and Shakti, and we see many representations. You have the six-pointed star, but it's also the Sri Yantra, which is the matrix that we find ourselves in. So, the Shakti is, again, we could use the analogy that, Shakti is the actual canvas and Shiva is the painter, the one painting the picture on Shakti. So Shiva is, again, the supreme ultimate consciousness in the Shakti sect. And again, everybody uses different words. Like there's Vaishnavites and there's Shaivites and there's Shaktyites. Just like we had said before, 30,000 different types of Christianity out there. And same thing with Hinduism. There's so many different ways of looking at it and labeling it. But the way that things are, the energies, the truth is basically one. And Shekinah, you don't find that in the Bible. but you will find it in the Kabbalah, and you'll find it in a lot of things that have been purposely omitted from the Bible. And again, the Bible is what we have right now of the Bible is just a tiny little part of everything that has been written, from the Christian authors down to the Hebrew scribes, as well as there were over 200 Gospels, and we only have 4, and they've been redacted in spots as well. We see lots of changes. So the Shekinah has been just basically erased from the whole tradition. And but again, that's the divine feminine. Now, why? Why? Ask yourself, why has the divine feminine been taken away from Western society in such large numbers? Of course, in Catholicism you have Mary, and you have 2 Marys. You have Mary Magdalene, who, according to some, is the actual literal wife of Christ. And then you have the Mother Mary as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, these energies need to be balanced in the body as you start waking up. That's really, really important. And in our society, they have created such a huge imbalance. It's not just going to be like one generation. It's going to be more like the monarch butterfly, where it's going to be many generations are going to have to bring back this balance.
Okay, so Risart says because they don't want us to create, well, perhaps they don't want us to create, things in balance and harmony with respect to the mother, because, our mother that we're standing on right now or sitting on is the earth itself. And would we be able to do the things that we have been doing to the earth? The polluting, the poisoning, the raping and pillaging of the land itself, killing the life forms indiscriminately just for more profit or a little cheaper gas and oil when we don't even really need those technologies anymore. And also making us more warlike. Think about it. What happens when guys take steroids? The testosterone gets going. They do get stronger, but they can get into fits of rage and into fits of violence that aren't being mitigated by the estrogen and the progesterone. We can look at it hormonally. Too much testosterone can turn somebody into quite a beast. Quite an angry, raging beast. Could probably make a good super soldier if they find a way to keep them pumped up on that. But because that's always seems to be where they want to put their money, as we were saying. So when we think of Mary, as a representation of this as well. When we think of Sophia in the Gnostic tradition, Sophia means wisdom. And again, that's the goddess energy. We're a society that's been totally, totally out of balance. And that lack of balance has been really cultivated by the powers that be.
Yeah, it really has, with all of the churches and all of the Bibles and even, our upbringing in school. It's all been separated and put out of balance. They did know that these times were coming. There are CIA documents that are, they've been uncovered now. They're like in the 1980s talking about how they knew people were going to start waking up to these energies and start to understand them in these times, like right now, where we're in right now. And they were coming up with different ways on how to suppress this energy. But, nature will find a way, and people will continue to evolve. And this is why we have so much repression these days and so many ideas on how to keep us down, so that we don't evolve and so we don't understand all of these things. Because once we do, we're not controllable.
Yeah, so everything has been done with a big purpose. And here we see the world soul is a woman. It's female, right? The Gnostic myth of Sophia. It's fascinating to get into it, and we could see the correlations. Like, to me, lately I've been just studying so much along the Puranas, the Vedas, the Hindu tradition, the people of the Indus Valley. Shakti's in my mind, but the earlier times I was just studying nothing but the Gnostic stuff for years. I was so deep into the Gnostic side, and it's so clear to see we're talking about the same energies. This is exactly what we're talking about. When you recognize the fact that, we are, again, each one of us is a single cell in the body of something bigger. So why would we act like a parasite or a virus, knowing this? Well, it's because, those that ultimately are in control here, they're not necessarily from here. The ultimate controllers are not actually part of this body. So to them, it's not their mother. It's not part of their natural environment. So most definitely, these beings that are ultimately in control are much more like looters, like pirates, so to speak. Again, it's so much like the movie Avatar, where the humans come in with all the tech and just start raping and pillaging the planet of another race that's very peaceful and looked at as primitive, but spiritually way more advanced than the intruders.
The natives of this world, they were very good about being able to blend and mesh with the mother. And if they did create anything on her, they asked for permission. And they just say point blank, to people, would you build a building on your mom's face without asking? No, of course not. So they really took it to heart that they are being held and cradled by their mother, and they acted like it. They treated her with great respect. They knew how to mesh and meld with the earth to not cause any harm, but to also enhance them and enhance her. Like as we walk on the earth, as we do the grounding, it's a little bit like a battery in the sense if you're barefoot, you strengthen each other. We strengthen the earth, she strengthens us. So that's why grounding is really, really important. And there's actually some pretty huge studies coming out about how much grounding can really help the human body. And look at our shoes, that's been completely taken away from us just by our shoes.
So I just finished going through the Yoga Sutras again and got so much more this time through. There's always more every time you go through that you pick up every time you go through some of these amazing books of wisdom, just amazing books of wisdom. And so it's really through kindling the energies of the mother that we can rise up higher in this realm. And that is the part of the biggest reason why they have done what they have done, to get us to totally forget about the divine feminine, to be able to again do things we wouldn't do normally or naturally. We would instinctively know what was wrong. When the Native Americans were here before the Europeans came, they were living in harmony, with the earth. And again, of course, they still had their wars between the different tribes. Humans are humans. No, nobody is perfect in this realm, and we are all basically in the process of working on ourselves. But they understood how important it was to be in sync with the world itself, to have reverence, for the goddess that we are living on, so to speak. And, unfortunately, that's been taken from us in this Western tradition that we have, the Western system, which is now a global system, as we're all living in America with a K, right? Although it's often conflated with early Christianity, Gnosticism isn't really even a religion, really, when you get down to it. It's more of a philosophy of sorts. It's a way of being in the world, a path to self-realization and integration with a more profound sense of reality. So there you have it again. Gnosticism is a path to self-realization. Hinduism is as well, and the other ones we have talked about. These are all paths, like Buddhism, to self-realization, to understanding, who am I in all this? And one of the first realizations to be cultivated and known is the one that's going to change you the most, and that's understanding that I have a body, but I'm not just a body. And when you understand that, and you understand that you are consciousness, you will go on after you shed the body, if you shed the body. And of course, everybody would think that, to be born means to die. And that is, at the core of many different philosophies. But at certain times, certain people have achieved things like the Tibetan rainbow body, where it's not like a normal death, so to speak. And, we're at one of those time periods where there may be many, many people that actually ascend in this lifetime.
Right. And what they've done with us too, is they've made it so we're extremely busy. We have to work, 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 work. And if we're not working, we're doing other chores. To get to these places, it does take time. It does take meditation. It does take inner work. And, they've created this surrounding where we are just so busy and we're under so much stress trying to get the bills paid, trying to get the kids to school and trying to get everybody fed and go, 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 that we don't have time to even really sit and take this time to go within to gain these abilities. And that's done very much by design also.
But many people, these abilities are going to be spontaneously appearing. And so when we get farther on down the line, you're going to have people walking this planet that are going to be able to do amazing things. We've talked about the different cities or superpowers that can be achieved through yoga. And same thing with Taoism. There are Taoist immortals who have been able to cultivate enough of the life force that they're literally changed, and they are quote-unquote immortals. And we've talked about the different yugas and how in the Kali Yuga, the lifespan of man was limited to 100, and the Bible says God will not strive with man. His lifespan will be no more than 120. But when we go up into the next age, the Bronze Age, the Dwapara, human lifespans are 1,000 years. Okay, and then you have Methuselah that lived 969 years. So, was he living in the Dwapara? And then we have the Treta, which is the Silver Age, and people live 10,000 years, and the Satya, people live 100,000 years in the Golden Age. So lifespans increase. And can you imagine what we could... Think about how wise you are now. If you're somebody that's older like me at 55, and I think about me at 55 and me at 45, and it's just so different in 10 years. So different in 10 years. The progress... in 10 years earlier than that, 35, it wasn't even the same person. I mean, there's been this path that we were on. Can you imagine if we could live 200, 300, 400 years, 500 years, 1,000 years? Can you imagine how much soul growth you could have without having to start all over again?
Oh, yeah. It would be really amazing at how much wisdom we would hold and how much we would understand the importance of passing on this wisdom to our children. It would be just a completely different world. And the beautiful thing about that is we are moving into that space now. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to take a lot of work. But we as light workers came down here to really kind of dig our feet into this and learn this stuff and understand it. So when the time comes, you're ready. People will have an understanding of what's going on because of all the work that you're doing now. So maybe it feels like now people aren't listening to you, but don't get frustrated with that. Just keep learning the information, keep browsing the information. You can't get everything online anymore, but you can still get a lot of information online.
So a lot of people have felt this shift, and there was a comment talking about, will we still know our loved ones? Yes, we will. And just to share with you, one of our people that we were working on today, one of our brothers, here at EEARTS, he lost his dog, which was to him a huge family member, as, Zeke and Sassy are huge family members to us too. But Cindy can't see the dog, and the dog is still with him.
Yeah, his pup is still with him and actually likes to try to eat off the plate, off of his plate. And it's really funny. I asked him if his dog did that, and he said no, but she would have loved to in real life, because she just, would have loved to do that. But she can now, so she's definitely with him. And what I got from him is these two souls actually incarnate together quite often. It was quite tragic and difficult for him to lose his pup.
And again, in the Hindu perspective, all jivas, start out at a certain spot and move up. And the jiva is the individual, right? And the individual soul, we should say. And so we go through a progression and actually, go through being, say, a plant and go through being, say, a bird and a fish. It's shown in the incarnations of Vishnu, the progression of the soul, because Vishnu is the preserver, incarnated, as he was a fish avatar at one point, and then a lion, on down the line, going up into what we would view as the perfect man, as Krishna and Rama, being the last two incarnations. And again, there's again some parables to it, and then there's deeper esoteric meanings as well. It's up to each one to decipher, but the fact is, life does go on. And as I was saying, Cindy is blessed where she could see things. Like when my own mom had passed, she could see that my mom was very, very happy because she could move around real easily now, where she couldn't in her last days. And she was somebody who's extremely active. But I felt her tug on my whiskers because she always hated me not being clean shaven. She always wanted me to be clean shaven like my dad. He never had a mustache or a beard in his life. And that's the way she liked it. But when she had passed on, I felt her presence, and I felt her basically touch me there. And I know it was her. I know she was saying, shave. You got to shave. And so I asked Cindy about it, and she picked up on her energy and saw how happy she was. And I think we've shared a couple of times, what happens on the other side when you first pass over is basically what all the traditions tell us. There's kind of a life review, and when you could go into the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the weighing of the soul against a feather. And again, that's a little bit of allegory there. But the only one that judges us is ourselves. And again, we're judged in the way of the natural law of cause and effect. So there's going to be things we need to work on, and we do, but we don't necessarily come right back. It's not like you're seeing the light and it's really the birth canal and you're popping straight back out. There's a life review that takes place, and some souls may not incarnate again for, decades or even hundreds of years.
Well, they're busy learning. They actually do go to school. Sometimes they come down, and I've seen them come down and just watch and observe human behavior. So there's a lot to do on that side. And sometimes when I'm working with somebody and they have a loved one that's passed on, they go to a place that's called like a resting place where they can just sort of relax and get better, because this world can be pretty difficult sometimes. It can really give you a run for your money. So people do go to a place that is called a rest. That's what I call it, resting place, because when I see them, they're usually like really relaxed, and a lot of times there's a beach that they're at, and I can hear the seagulls and I can see the waves, and I'll get information from them just to confirm with their loved one that, yeah, that is who it is. So it's quite interesting how things work over there. You could parallel it a little bit to the way things work here.
Most definitely. So ultimately what we're looking at here too, I like, because, when we have some of these visions, where the Bible is trying to describe something of the glory of God, and you just see all these angelic type of beings, and here we have the Merkaba in the middle, as everybody's kind of got their wings on the higher frequencies, the higher densities. One thing I've shared with you guys before too, in the Hindu tradition, this is actually one of the biggest blessings, being human, because as a human, it's, according to Hinduism and also Buddhist thought too, that's kind of like our only chance, really, for complete moksha, liberation, and where you basically are remerged into the Godhead, into Source, into the oneness. And it's only in the human form that we can do this. The higher beings, like the angels, and in the Hindu tradition, the devas, the gods, they're at a very high level of consciousness. But in order to go to that highest level, it's down here that they would have to come in order to transcend up and beyond where they are. And many beings will evolve to a certain point and just perhaps stay at that point because that's where they want to be. And that's where they feel motivated to be, where they could do the most good. And that's why when we look at these angels that are out there, and they're very real, we've experienced and seen them, as we've actually experienced the devas too, multiple occasions, many times. Their energies are really real. These are real beings out there. They're just in service to others, is what it is. It boils down to like the law of one, where you're in service to self or you're in service to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do like to learn, and they are on a journey as well. So, and we should look at our lives as it is. It's a huge journey, and it's all about learning. And we learn as much as we can, just not just like literature wise, but life lessons. I call it soul substance experiences. That's what we want to collect while we're here.
Yes, it's all about learning. Mm-hmm. It's all about learning. So I want to thank you guys again for your support here, also at Ko-Fi and Patreon. As always, keep your energy and your vibes high. There's a lot ahead. It's going to be a real roller coaster ride. There's a lot of twists and turns. We have just, a few more days before we get to the eclipse, the 14th. The energies there will be very interesting to see. And there will be kind of a shifting of the energies going on. So as we had said before, with the high and the low from the election, I wouldn't be surprised. We could feel the energy shift. And they're going to shift a few times, so be aware of that. And, don't allow yourself to be caught up in the chaos. Rise above it.
Right. And, when we do feel these huge energetic changes or see them, we'll definitely come in and let you guys know what we're seeing, experiencing, and hopefully you can take that and find some peace with it. So thanks for joining us. We really, really, really appreciate you guys.
As always, God bless and namaste.